There's a skill so simple that most people overlook it. It doesn't require money. It doesn't require intelligence. It doesn't require status, strength, or influence. And yet, mastering it can completely change the way you handle anger, disrespect, criticism, rejection, pressure, and difficult people. The skill is this: the ability to pause before you react. Think about the last time someone said something that offended you. Maybe they disrespected you. Maybe they criticized you in front of other people. Maybe someone ignored you. Maybe somebody sent you a message that immediately changed your mood. What happened next? Did you pause? Did you breathe? Did you examine what was happening? Or did your emotions take over before your reasoning had a chance to speak? For most people, the answer is obvious. Something happens. Emotion rises. The mouth responds. The fingers type. The message is sent. The decision is made. And only afterward comes a thought: I shouldn't have reacted like that. But by then, the damage may already be done. The argument has escalated. The relationship has been damaged. The opportunity has disappeared. The words cannot be taken back. And you're left wondering, why didn't I just stay calm? This is precisely where Stoic philosophy becomes powerful. Because the Stoics understood something that most people never deliberately train. There is a space between what happens and what you do about it. And inside that space is your freedom, the moment that determines your power. Imagine someone insults you. The insult itself is an event. Your anger is a response. Your decision to insult them back is another response. These things are connected, but they are not the same thing. The first thing happens outside you. The second happens inside you. And the third is where your character becomes visible. Most people collapse these three moments into one. They believe, they insulted me, so I had to respond. No, they insulted you. Then you experienced an emotion. Then you chose what to do with that emotion. That distinction may seem small, but it is enormous. Because if you believe every emotion requires immediate action, you become a prisoner of your impulses. Anger tells you to attack. You attack. Fear tells you to retreat. You retreat. Jealousy tells you to compare. You compare. Pride tells you to prove yourself. You prove yourself. Anxiety tells you to overthink. You overthink. The emotion gives a command, and you obey. Stoicism teaches another way. Feel the emotion. Notice the emotion. But don't surrender your judgment to it. The world will constantly test this skill. You don't need to search for difficult situations. They will find you. Someone will cut you off in traffic. A colleague will take credit for your work. A friend will disappoint you. A family member will misunderstand you. Someone will criticize something you worked hard on. A stranger will be rude. Someone will cancel plans. A person you trusted will make a decision you didn't expect. A goal will take longer than you thought. A plan will fail. And your mind will immediately produce a reaction. That's normal. The Stoic isn't someone who never feels anger. The Stoic isn't someone who never feels disappointment. The Stoic isn't someone who becomes emotionally numb. The Stoic is someone who learns. I don't have to become whatever emotion I am currently experiencing. That's a completely different level of self-control. The difference between reaction and response. Let's make this simple. A reaction is automatic. A response is chosen. Someone insults you. Reaction. Say something back. Response. Do I even need to answer this? Someone criticizes you. Reaction. Who are they to judge me? Response. Is there anything useful in what they said? Someone ignores you. Reaction. I'll ignore them too. Response. Their behavior doesn't determine mine. Someone provokes you. Reaction. I'll show them. Response. Why would I give them control over my behavior? The difference is not always what you eventually do. Sometimes you may still speak. Sometimes you may still confront someone. Sometimes you may walk away. The difference is why you are doing it. Are you acting from deliberate judgment? Or are you simply obeying an emotional impulse? Your first victory is not winning the argument. This is where many people misunderstand strength. They think strength means having the perfect comeback. They think strength means humiliating the person who disrespected them. They think strength means getting the last word. But imagine someone successfully provokes you. They insult you. You become furious. You spend the next 3 hours thinking about them. You replay the conversation. You imagine what you should have said. You tell other people about what happened. You lose sleep. They may have forgotten the interaction completely. Who really controlled whom? They controlled your attention. They controlled your emotional state. They occupied your mind without even being present. That isn't power. That's emotional dependence. The Stoic asks a different question. Why am I allowing someone else's behavior to dictate the quality of my inner life? Marcus Aurelius and the discipline of the mind. Marcus Aurelius lived under enormous pressure. He wasn't living in a peaceful world where everyone respected him. He dealt with political conflict, military campaigns, disease, death, betrayal, responsibility, and uncertainty. Yet his private reflections repeatedly returned to one central idea. Your mind is where your judgment happens. He understood that circumstances can challenge you without automatically determining your character. That principle remains relevant today. Your circumstances may be difficult. Your workplace may be frustrating. Your relationships may be complicated. Your finances may be uncertain. People may misunderstand you. But none of those things automatically decide how you will behave. You still have a choice. And sometimes that choice is extremely small. Just one breath, 1 second, one moment of restraint. But that moment can change everything that follows. The 1 second gap. Think about the moment someone says something offensive. Your body reacts before you consciously think. Your heart may beat faster. Your muscles tighten. Your face changes. Your mind immediately begins constructing a response. That's a moment to pause. Not for 10 minutes. Not necessarily for an hour. Sometimes 1 second is enough. Take one breath. Don't speak yet. Don't type yet. Don't send a message. Don't make the decision. Give your reasoning mind a chance to catch up with your emotions. This is not weakness. This is mental discipline. Why the pause feels so uncomfortable. Here's the strange thing. When you're angry, reacting feels satisfying. Your mind says, do something. It wants immediate action, because immediate action creates the illusion of control. Someone disrespects you. You respond instantly. For a moment, you feel powerful, but later, you may realize you weren't actually in control. Your anger was. That's why the pause can feel uncomfortable. You're resisting an impulse, and resistance requires strength. But every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen that ability, just like a muscle. Self-control is a trainable skill. Nobody wakes up one morning with perfect emotional control. You train it. You train it when someone annoys you and you choose not to snap. You train it when you receive a message that triggers you and decide to wait before replying. You train it when someone criticizes you and you listen before defending yourself. You train it when you want to make an impulsive purchase and decide to think about it. You train it when you're angry and choose your words carefully. Every small moment becomes practice, and eventually something changes. The space between emotion and action becomes larger. The pause becomes easier. You start noticing your emotions earlier. You begin catching yourself before the reaction. And eventually, what once controlled you becomes something you can observe. You are not your anger. Anger can be powerful, but anger is temporary. You have experienced anger before, and it eventually passed. You've experienced fear before. It passed. You've experienced embarrassment. It passed. You've experienced heartbreak. The intensity eventually changed. You've experienced anxiety. It changed. Emotions move. They rise. They peak. They decline. The problem comes when we treat a temporary emotional state as a permanent command. I'm angry, therefore I must act. No, you can be angry and remain silent. You can be angry and leave the room. You can be angry and wait. You can be angry and choose your words. You can be angry and still act according to your values. That's emotional mastery. Not every emotion deserves a decision. This is a principle worth remembering. Feelings are information. They are not always instructions. If you're angry, the anger may tell you that something matters, but it doesn't tell you exactly what to do. If you're afraid, fear may alert you to uncertainty, but it doesn't automatically mean you should run. If you're jealous, jealousy may reveal insecurity, but it doesn't mean you should attack someone. If you're frustrated, frustration may show that your expectations aren't being met, but it doesn't mean you should lose control. Listen to emotions, then investigate them. Don't automatically obey them. What if someone really is wrong? This is where people often misunderstand Stoicism. They think emotional control means tolerating everything. It doesn't. Suppose someone repeatedly disrespects you. The Stoic response isn't, "I must accept this forever." The response might be, "I will address this calmly." "Oh, I will establish a boundary." "Oh, I will distance myself." "Oh, I will end the relationship." The difference is that you're acting deliberately. You're not screaming because anger demanded it. You're making a decision because your judgment concluded it was necessary. That's strength. Silence can be a form of control. There are moments when the most powerful response is no response. Not because you are afraid, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that not every situation deserves your energy. Someone wants to provoke you. You don't have to participate. Someone wants an argument. You don't have to accept the invitation. Someone wants you to defend yourself endlessly. You can simply say, "I understand your position," and move on. Sometimes silence protects your peace better than the perfect argument ever could. Stop trying to win every interaction. There is a hidden addiction many people have, the need to be right. They need the other person to admit, "You're right." They need the last word. They need the apology. They need recognition. They need the other person to understand their perspective. But sometimes you're not going to get it. And if your peace depends on someone else admitting that you were right, you've handed them control. The Stoic asks, what outcome actually matters? Sometimes the answer isn't winning. Sometimes it's preserving your character. The person who knows when to walk away. Imagine someone trying to drag you into an argument. They raise their voice. You raise yours. They become disrespectful. You become disrespectful. Now both people are angry. What happened? You mirrored their behavior. They determine the emotional tone of the interaction. But imagine instead that you remain calm. You say, "I'm willing to discuss this when we can do it respectfully." And you leave. You didn't lose. You exercise control. That's a much harder victory. The second Stoic practice, create a delay. Here's something practical. When you receive an emotional message, don't answer immediately. If it's not urgent, wait. Take a walk. Drink water. Breathe. Do something else. Then return to it. You may discover that the response you wanted to send 5 minutes ago no longer represents what you actually think. Why? Because the emotional intensity has decreased, and now reason has room to operate. The power of not sending the message. You type, "You're unbelievable. I can't believe you would do this." You reread it. Your anger rises. You want to press send. Stop. Don't. Save it if you need to. Walk away. Return later. Maybe you decide to send a calmer version. Maybe you decide the conversation isn't worth having. Maybe you realize you misunderstood. Maybe you realize the other person isn't worth your energy. That unsent message can be a victory. Nobody sees it. Nobody applauds it. But you know what happened. You controlled yourself. And that matters. When someone tries to provoke you, imagine someone knows exactly which buttons to push. They know what makes you angry. They know what embarrasses you. They know what you are insecure about. And they use it intentionally. If you react every time, they learn something. They can control you. But when you stop giving predictable reactions, the dynamic changes. They may try again. You remain calm. Again, you remain calm. Eventually, they discover this doesn't work anymore. You didn't defeat them by shouting louder. You defeated the strategy by removing its reward. Your reaction is sometimes a reward. This is especially important with provocations. Some people don't actually want resolution. They want reaction. They want attention. They want emotional energy. They want to see you lose control. If you give them exactly what they wanted, you've participated in their game. But if you remain composed, you deny them the reward. That doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or serious wrongdoing. It means you choose the most effective response rather than the most emotionally satisfying one. The third Stoic practice, ask what would a wise person do? When you're emotionally triggered, ask, what would the wisest version of me do right now? Not, what does my anger want? Not, what would make me feel powerful for 5 minutes? Ask, What response will I respect tomorrow? That's powerful, because your future self has to live with today's decisions. Think beyond the next 5 minutes. Your emotions often think in short time frames. Anger asks, how can I make them regret this right now? Wisdom asks, will I regret this tomorrow? Pride asks, how can I prove myself? Wisdom asks, does proving myself actually matter? Fear asks, how can I escape this discomfort? Wisdom asks, what happens if I keep avoiding it? The ability to think beyond the immediate moment is one of the foundations of self-control. Your future self is watching. Before you send the angry message, imagine reading it tomorrow. Before you insult someone, imagine hearing your own words the next morning. Before you make an impulsive decision, imagine living with the consequences a month later. This isn't about becoming fearful. It's about widening your perspective. The emotional mind says, right now. Wisdom says, and then what? The real meaning of emotional strength. Emotional strength doesn't mean you never get upset. It means you can be upset without becoming destructive. It means you can feel anger without becoming cruel. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. You can experience rejection without destroying your self-worth. You can receive criticism without immediately becoming defensive. You can experience disrespect without abandoning your values. You can feel disappointment without giving up. That's strength, not emotional numbness. Emotional command. The Stoic doesn't ask life to be easy. This is another important distinction. A fragile mindset says, I will be calm when everything around me becomes calm. A stronger mindset says, I will train myself to remain grounded even when circumstances become difficult. One depends on the world. The other depends on training. And you can't always choose what happens, but you can choose what kind of person you practice becoming. A simple daily training exercise. You don't have to wait for a major crisis to practice this. Start with small irritations. Tomorrow, notice the first thing that annoys you. Maybe traffic, maybe a slow internet connection, maybe someone interrupting you, maybe a delayed response, maybe an inconvenient task. Instead of immediately reacting, pause. Take one breath. Ask, what is actually happening? Then, what part of this is within my control? Then, what response would I respect later? That's your training. Do it repeatedly. Small irritations become practice for bigger challenges. The mind becomes strong through repetition. You don't become emotionally disciplined because you watched one motivational video. You become disciplined through repetition. One pause, then another. One controlled response, then another. One difficult conversation handled calmly, then another. One impulse resisted, then another. Eventually, restraint becomes familiar. You don't have to force it as much. Your default begins to change. That's how philosophy becomes character. The hidden cost of reacting to everything. Think about how much energy you lose when everything gets a reaction. A comment affects your mood. A message affects your mood. A stranger affects your mood. Someone else's success affects your mood. Someone else's criticism affects your mood. Traffic affects your mood. A delayed plan affects your mood. Someone's opinion affects your mood. Your emotional state becomes dependent on whatever happens around you. You're essentially saying, I will feel however my environment makes me feel. That's exhausting. The Stoic says, my environment can influence me, but it doesn't get to command me. That is freedom. Part 1. The turning point. So perhaps the skill that 99% of people lack isn't some mysterious secret. Maybe it's something incredibly simple. The ability to pause. To create a moment between stimulus and response. To stop, observe, think, then choose. Because that tiny pause is where self-control lives. Without it, you're mostly reacting to life. With it, you begin participating in your own decisions. And once you learn to pause, something else becomes possible. You begin noticing what triggers you. You begin discovering why certain people have so much power over your emotions. You begin seeing how pride, insecurity, fear, and the need for approval influence your reactions. And that's where the journey gets even deeper. Because controlling your response isn't just about remaining calm when someone insults you. It's about understanding why you need to respond in the first place. Why does criticism hurt so much? Why does disrespect make you desperate to prove yourself? Why does being ignored make you anxious? Why does someone else's success make you question your own worth? Why do you feel compelled to have the final word? Those questions lead directly into the next level of Stoic self-mastery. Your triggers reveal where you give away your power. Have you ever noticed that certain people can affect you more than others? One person says something rude, and you don't care. Another person says almost the same thing, and suddenly you're furious. Why? Because the words aren't always a real issue. Sometimes the issue is what those words mean to you. Maybe criticism makes you angry because you desperately want to be seen as competent. Maybe being ignored hurts because you need reassurance that you're valued. Maybe disrespect makes you explode because you believe you must always defend your status. Maybe someone else's success makes you uncomfortable because you secretly compare your life to theirs. Your reaction can reveal a hidden belief, and once you discover the belief, you can begin changing the reaction. Ask, what am I protecting? The next time you become disproportionately angry, don't only ask, why did they do that? Ask, what am I trying to protect? Your reputation? Your pride? Your ego? Your sense of control? Your need to be liked? Your image of yourself? This question can be uncomfortable, but it is powerful, because sometimes the strongest emotional reactions aren't defending your values. They're defending your ego. When criticism feels like an attack, imagine someone says, "You could have handled that better." One person hears information. Another person hears an attack. Why? Because the second person interprets criticism as, "You are not good enough." Now the ego gets involved. The person becomes defensive. They explain. They justify. They attack the critic. They start listing everything the other person has done wrong. What started as one piece of feedback becomes a battle. The Stoic approach is different. Pause. Ask, is there anything useful here? If yes, learn. If no, release it. Either way, you don't need to lose control. Not all criticism deserves your defense. This is an important distinction. Some criticism is valuable. Some criticism is careless. Some criticism is malicious. Some criticism is simply an opinion. You don't need to treat all of it equally. Imagine someone says, "You're terrible at this." Instead of immediately defending yourself, ask, is there evidence behind this? Maybe there is. Then improve. Maybe there isn't. Then move on. Your self-worth shouldn't depend on winning an argument about yourself. The need to defend yourself can become a trap. Have you ever spent 10 minutes explaining something that didn't actually need 10 minutes of explanation? You want them to understand, so you explain again. They still don't understand. You explain more. They misunderstand again. Now you're frustrated. You think, why don't they get it? But here's the problem. You cannot force another person to understand you. You can explain. You can clarify. You can provide evidence. Then you have to release the outcome. Otherwise, you're trapped in an endless attempt to control someone else's mind. And that is something Stoicism tells you to stop doing. You don't need everyone to see you correctly. This is one of the hardest lessons to accept. Someone may misunderstand your intentions. Someone may tell a story about you that isn't accurate. Someone may judge you unfairly. You can correct the misunderstanding when appropriate. But you don't have to spend your entire life trying to control your reputation. Marcus Aurelius understood that public opinion is unstable. Today people praise you. Tomorrow they criticize you. The crowd changes. If your identity depends on the crowd, you will constantly be unstable. Build your character instead. Your character doesn't need a public relations campaign. Think about a tree. It doesn't need to convince everyone that it is growing. It simply grows. Your job is similar. Work, improve, act with integrity. Keep your word. Treat people properly. Learn from your mistakes. You don't need to announce every virtue. Let your life become the evidence. This is why Stoic strength often looks quiet. It doesn't need constant explanation. When someone insults you, let's make this practical. Someone insults you, your first impulse is to respond. Before you do, ask, what outcome do I actually want? Do you want resolution, a boundary, an apology, distance? Or do you simply want to hurt them because they hurt you? Be honest. If your real goal is revenge, recognize it. Then ask whether revenge will actually improve the situation. Sometimes the strongest response is direct. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's leaving. Sometimes it's calmly saying, "Don't speak to me that way." The Stoic isn't committed to silence. The Stoic is committed to deliberate action. Anger can be a signal without becoming your driver. Anger isn't automatically your enemy. It can tell you that a boundary has been crossed. It can tell you something matters. It can give you energy. But anger is a terrible driver. It sees one part of the situation and wants immediate action. Wisdom sees the whole picture. So when anger appears, don't immediately suppress it. Listen, then investigate. Ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Then decide whether its suggested action is actually wise. The difference between suppression and control. Some people hear Stoicism and think, I'm supposed to hide my emotions. No, suppression says, I shouldn't feel this. Control says, I feel this, but I choose what I do with it. Suppression pushes the emotion underground. Control brings awareness to it. Suppression may eventually explode. Control creates space. You don't need to pretend you're not angry. You need to avoid becoming destructive because you're angry. When someone pushes your buttons, imagine someone knows exactly what makes you angry. They make a comment. You ignore it. They make another. You remain calm. They escalate. You still don't give them the reaction they are looking for. Eventually, they may become frustrated. Why? Because your emotional buttons only work if you press them yourself. Someone can push, but you decide whether to explode. That is the difference between being triggered and being controlled. Don't give people the remote control to your mind. Imagine handing someone a remote control. They press a button. You become angry. Another button. You become insecure. Another. You become jealous. Another. You become anxious. Would you willingly hand someone that remote? Probably not. But that's exactly what happens when your emotional state depends entirely on other people's behavior. Someone can praise you and you're happy. Someone criticizes you and you're miserable. Someone responds quickly and you feel valued. Someone ignores you and you feel worthless. Your emotional state becomes externally controlled. Take the remote back. You cannot control what people think. This principle becomes especially important with social media. You post something. People react. Someone compliments you. You feel good. Someone criticizes you. You feel bad. Someone doesn't respond. You wonder why. Someone else gets more attention. You compare yourself. Suddenly, your peace depends on strangers. But remember, their reactions belong to them. Your character belongs to you. If you did something wrong, correct it. If you did something right, continue. But don't allow an unpredictable crowd to determine your emotional worth. The Stoic doesn't need constant validation. Validation feels good. There's nothing wrong with appreciating encouragement. The problem begins when you need it. When you need people to tell you you're attractive, successful, intelligent, interesting, important, then silence becomes threatening. Criticism becomes devastating. Rejection becomes unbearable. And you start changing yourself to maintain approval. Stoicism offers a stronger foundation. Live according to your principles, not according to applause. When you are ignored, few things trigger insecurity faster than being ignored. You send a message. No response. You check your phone. Nothing. You check again. Still nothing. Then the mind begins writing a story. They are angry with me. They don't respect me. Maybe they don't care. What did I do? Stop. You don't know. That's a critical point. Your mind has created an explanation and is treating it as reality. You don't have facts. You have uncertainty. And uncertainty is where overthinking thrives. Separate fact from stories. Fact, they haven't responded. Story, they don't care about me. Fact, they criticize my work. Story, they think I'm incompetent. Fact, I wasn't invited. Story, everyone secretly dislikes me. Fact, I made a mistake. Story, I'll never succeed. This distinction can save you from enormous emotional suffering. Before reacting to a thought, ask, what do I actually know? Then separate what you know from what you're assuming. The mind hates uncertainty. Your brain wants an explanation. If it doesn't have one, it creates one. That's why you can receive no reply and immediately assume rejection. You see someone whispering and assume they are talking about you. You hear criticism and assume they dislike you. You experience a setback and assume everything is going wrong. The mind fills gaps. But Stoic discipline says, don't punish yourself with stories you cannot prove. Wait for reality. When plans fall apart, now let's move beyond people. Sometimes your trigger isn't another person. It's reality itself. You make a plan. You prepare. You expect a certain result. Then something changes. The flight is delayed. The project fails. The opportunity disappears. The money doesn't arrive. The plan gets canceled. Your first thought, this wasn't supposed to happen. But reality doesn't consult your expectations. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes brutally practical. Expect life to resist you. A strong person doesn't assume everything will go smoothly. They understand that obstacles are part of life. If you expect every plan to work perfectly, every disruption will feel like an injustice. But if you expect uncertainty, you become more adaptable. You don't say, why is life doing this to me? You say, this is a situation. What can I do now? That one shift turns frustration into problem solving. The obstacle becomes training. Suppose you're trying to become patient. Then someone makes you wait. That's training. You're trying to become calm. Then something frustrating happens. That's training. You're trying to become disciplined. Then temptation appears. That's training. You're trying to become courageous. Then fear appears. That's training. Your philosophy becomes meaningful when life gives you opportunities to practice it. Otherwise, it's just an idea. Difficult people can become your trainers. This is one of the most powerful ways to change your perspective. Instead of asking, why do I have to deal with this person? Ask, what quality is this person forcing me to practice? Maybe patience, maybe boundaries, maybe emotional control, maybe communication, maybe detachment, maybe courage, maybe the ability to walk away. You don't have to like difficult people, but you can use difficult situations to strengthen yourself. Don't let a difficult person turn you into a difficult person. This is a trap. Someone is rude. You become rude. Someone is dishonest. You become manipulative. Someone is aggressive. You become aggressive. Someone is disrespectful. You become disrespectful. Now their behavior has changed your character. That's a deeper defeat. You can protect yourself without becoming like the person you're protecting yourself from. Remember, their behavior is their responsibility. Your character is yours. The real test of Stoicism. It's easy to talk about peace when nothing is happening. It's easy to say, I am calm, when nobody is challenging you. The test comes when someone attacks your ego, when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're angry, when you're misunderstood, when something goes wrong. That's when philosophy becomes practice. That's when you discover whether you actually control yourself. A practical Stoic method: pause, examine, choose. Let's turn everything into one simple method. When something triggers you, pause. Don't immediately act. Take a breath. Create space. Examine. What happened? What am I feeling? What am I assuming? What is actually within my control? Choose. What response aligns with the person I want to become? Then act. Not perfectly, not emotionally numb, just deliberately. What if you still react? You will. Sometimes you'll lose your temper. Sometimes you'll say something you regret. Sometimes you'll make an emotional decision. Don't turn that mistake into another reason to attack yourself. Instead, study it. Ask, where did I lose control? Maybe you were tired. Maybe you were already stressed. Maybe you felt disrespected. Maybe you were insecure. Maybe you didn't pause. Identify the pattern. Then train for the next opportunity. Don't turn self-control into perfectionism. This matters. The goal isn't, I must never get angry. That's unrealistic. The goal is, I want to become better at handling anger. Not, I will never react. But, I will react less impulsively. Not, nothing will ever bother me. But, I will recover faster. That's progress. And progress is sustainable. The strongest people still have emotions. Never confuse emotional strength with emotional emptiness. A strong person can feel deeply. They can love. They can grieve. They can become frustrated. They can experience fear. They can be disappointed. But they don't allow every emotion to become an order. That's the goal. Not to destroy your humanity, but to develop enough awareness that your emotions don't hijack your judgment. When you control your response, you change the entire dynamic. Imagine two people arguing. Person A becomes louder. Person B becomes calmer. Person A insults. Person B doesn't retaliate. Person A becomes more emotional. Person B remains focused on the issue. What happens? Eventually, the emotional energy has nowhere to go. Calmness can interrupt escalation. Not always, but often. And even when it doesn't change the other person, it still protects you. That's the real point. You can't guarantee their behavior. You can protect yours. Your peace doesn't require their calmness. This is an important realization. You don't have to wait for someone else to become reasonable before you become reasonable. You don't have to wait for someone else to apologize before you regain your peace. You don't have to wait for someone else to understand you before you move forward. You don't have to wait for someone else to behave well before you behave according to your values. Their behavior is theirs. Your response is yours. And that distinction gives you tremendous freedom. The moment you stop taking everything personally, not everything is about you. Someone is in a bad mood. It may have nothing to do with you. Someone doesn't respond. They may be busy. Someone disagrees. They may simply see things differently. Someone criticizes you. They may be projecting their own frustrations. Someone succeeds. Their success isn't your failure. Someone leaves. Their decision doesn't automatically define your worth. The ego makes everything personal. Wisdom creates perspective. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. Stoic detachment is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean nothing matters. It means I care without allowing my peace to depend completely on the outcome. You can love someone without controlling them. You can pursue success without making success your identity. You can work hard without demanding guaranteed results. You can care about your reputation without becoming obsessed with everyone's opinion. You can pursue your goals while accepting uncertainty. That's emotional freedom. The deeper lesson. At this point, you should see that the Stoic skill isn't simply staying calm. It's much deeper. It's the ability to maintain ownership of your judgment. When someone provokes you, you don't surrender it. When you're criticized, you don't surrender it. When you're ignored, you don't surrender it. When your plans fail, you don't surrender it. When fear appears, you don't surrender it. You stop allowing circumstances to dictate who you become. And that is where real power begins. But there's one final level. Because even if you learn to pause, even if you learn to control your reactions, there's still a question. What are you going to fill that space with? If you pause but still let fear decide, if you pause but still let pride decide, if you pause but still let insecurity decide, then you've only delayed the reaction. The ultimate goal is to replace impulse with principle, to know what you stand for before the difficult moment arrives. Because when you know your values, you don't have to ask, what should I do? Every time life becomes difficult, you already know. The final challenge. For the next 7 days, try something simple. Don't try to control everyone. Don't try to eliminate every emotion. Don't try to become perfectly calm. Instead, practice one thing. Pause before responding. When something triggers you, create space. Breathe. Observe. Choose. At the end of the day, ask, how many times did I react automatically? And how many times did I pause and choose? Don't judge yourself. Track your progress. Because every pause is a small victory. And every small victory strengthens the person you're becoming. The world will continue testing you. People will continue misunderstanding you. Some will provoke you. Some will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Unexpected problems will appear. Your emotions will rise. You cannot eliminate these things, but you can become harder to control. And that is the real Stoic advantage. Not controlling the world, controlling yourself within the world.